It's unfortunate that you will never know what it's like to live a life of prestige. Some people are born to lead, others only to follow orders," declared the imposing and arrogant CEO, humiliating the cleaning lady in front of everyone, without realizing who he was truly speaking to. Stay with me until the end to witness the revolution in this story. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep receiving extraordinary stories that will touch your heart. The day was dawning in Seattle, casting a pale light through the towering glass windows of the majestic headquarters of Horizon Dynamics. Sunbeams filtered across the steel and concrete structure, reflecting off the polished floors and creating hypnotic patterns that spread along the silent hallways. The building, usually buzzing with activity, seemed cloaked in a subtle tension, as if each wall and door anticipated the events about to unfold. The cleaning lady, Clara, still invisible in the eyes of most, entered through the back gate with her cleaning cart. Each step was cautious but carried an air of determination. She observed closely, absorbing every detail. The stern expression of Alexander Monroe, the CEO infamous for his arrogance, the restrained unease of the employees, and even the small, fleeting gestures that revealed hidden insecurity. As she pushed her cart forward, Clara felt a blend of anxiety and purpose. She knew she was not just another cleaning lady in that realm of power. Every move, every observation, was part of a silent and calculated plan. Her eyes captured nuances that anyone else would have overlooked. An open contract left on a desk, hurried notes scribbled on forgotten papers, the silent glances exchanged between employees, each one telling quiet stories of ambition, fear, and expectation. She took a deep breath, straightened her posture, and felt the weight of the decisions before her, fully aware that this silent test would not only determine the future of the company, but also reveal who truly possessed character and courage. The tension in the air was undeniable. The employees, though busy with their routines, sensed something different in this new presence. Clara carried an almost magnetic energy, subtle, yet impossible to ignore. Every simple gesture, a cloth sweeping over a surface, a chair adjusted with care, her attentive gaze lingering on a detail, radiated a silent authority, a hidden leadership that needed no words to assert itself. The day promised to be long, and every passing minute seemed to prepare the ground for something extraordinary. Clara's invisible presence was already beginning to shift the atmosphere of the company, making it clear that nothing in that office would remain the same, and that the moments to come would be filled with tension, surprise, and profound lessons. As Clara moved through the hallways, her sharp gaze swept across every detail of Horizon Dynamics' routine. Alexander Monroe commanded his team with the precision and rigidity that made him feared. Controlled gestures, curt words, and a stare powerful enough to freeze any initiative that strayed from his expectations. Yet Clara, hidden beneath the humble appearance of a cleaning lady, observed each action with a perception that went far beyond routine. She noticed the small hesitations, the forced smiles, the restless hands, and even the subtle glances of complicity exchanged between certain employees. Every detail, no matter how insignificant it might seem, was silently registered, forming a picture that only she could fully understand at that moment. The employees began to notice subtle differences in Clara's presence. Even while occupied with tasks that appeared trivial, her awareness of the environment and the people around her was impossible to ignore. A glass slightly out of place, a chair misaligned, a file poorly positioned, nothing escaped her gaze. And each correction was carried out with precision and discretion, transmitting competence without arrogance. Alexander, absorbed in his own power and authority, failed to see the silent impact of her presence. But the quiet exchanges of looks among the staff revealed that, even without words, something was shifting. Clara was beginning to plant the seed of a transformation that no one yet could predict. The tension grew like an invisible current in the air. Every detail of the office seemed charged with meaning. The position of a chair, the shine reflected on the polished floor, the soft echo of footsteps, the restrained anticipation on the employees' faces. Clara felt responsibility pulsing through each gesture, knowing that her silence and discretion were preparing the ground for a revelation that would change everything. As she carefully cleaned each surface, the thought guiding her every move was clear. Before I reveal who I truly am, I must understand who deserves respect, who has courage, and who is destined to be part of a future of growth and transformation. The atmosphere vibrated with anticipation, making it evident that every moment of that day would carry profound and unforgettable weight. Alexander Monroe walked through the meeting room with firm steps, each movement radiating authority. His piercing gaze examined every employee, assessing not only performance but also posture, submission, and even traces of courage. Clara, still disguised as the cleaning lady, moved silently with her cart across the space, absorbing each gesture, each expression, each nuance of the environment. For this was no ordinary day. Everything was part of a carefully designed test she had orchestrated with precision. In a moment charged with arrogance, Alexander approached Clara, his gaze never leaving the room, and said in a provocative tone, "It's unfortunate that you'll never know what it means to live a life of prestige. Some people are born to lead, while others are merely meant to watch." His words sliced through the air like invisible blades, designed to wound pride and crush confidence. But Clara did not back down. Standing tall and composed, she replied in a calm yet steady voice, "Perhaps, but not all eyes see value the same way, and not everyone is capable of measuring what truly matters." The room fell into silence. The employees, once busy with their tasks, now watched in fascination. There was something in her response, strength, dignity, and an intelligence that challenged any hierarchy built on fear. The impact of that brief exchange was almost immediate. Alexander, caught off guard, frowned slightly as he tried to regain control of the situation. Yet every move Clara made only reinforced her undeniable presence and an authority that came not from titles or wealth, but from within. Small details, the way she held his gaze, the subtle tension in her shoulders, the calm rhythm of her steps, spoke louder than any command. The tension in the air thickened, charging each passing second with expectation. Clara knew it was still too soon to reveal her true identity, but every interaction was laying the groundwork for the grand revelation that would transform not only the office, but everyone's perception of power, authority, and respect. As the day wore on, the atmosphere in the office grew almost tangible with tension. Alexander Monroe, still intrigued and quietly unsettled by Clara's audacity, decided to push her limits once more. He walked toward her, his footsteps echoing against the polished floor, and said in a sharp, cutting tone, "Do you really believe you can grasp this environment? Here, success is measured by power, influence, and status, not by kindness or precision. Some are born to command, others are destined only to obey." The room seemed to hold its breath. Each employee shifted uncomfortably in silence, aware that this provocation might unleash something unexpected. Clara lifted her eyes, meeting Alexander's with unwavering resolve. Her posture remained composed, though every muscle carried the quiet tension of someone ready to absorb and dismantle the arrogance pressing down on her. With a voice steady, clear, and laced with undeniable authority, she answered, "A person's worth isn't measured by what they own, but by the impact they leave through their actions. True leadership is not imposed through arrogance or titles. It is earned through dignity, respect, and courage. A real leader leads by example." Her words rang through the room, striking not only Alexander but everyone present. A heavy silence settled over the office, breaking the monotony of the day, as faint expressions of surprise and admiration began to appear on the employees' faces. Alexander, caught off guard, stepped back slightly, his pride stung by Clara's firmness and intelligence. He still didn't realize that this was not just a confrontation. Every word, every gesture, every glance from Clara was part of a greater test, an evaluation of character and ethics. The tension had reached its peak, turning every detail of the environment into a symbol of expectation. The faint tap of a pen against the table, the subtle creak of a chair, the hushed murmur of an attentive employee. Clara knew the moment of revelation had not yet arrived, but each interaction, each small victory, brought her closer to the climax, preparing everyone for a shift that would forever change the dynamics and perception of power within Horizon Dynamics. Clara continued her work with the precision of someone who understands that every gesture, no matter how simple it may seem, can carry profound meaning. As she wiped down tables and organized documents, she noticed small mistakes that Alexander had ignored or underestimated. Reports slightly misaligned, numbers just a little off, details most people would overlook. Without drawing attention, she corrected each situation with subtlety, almost invisibly, yet with the insight of someone who knows how much impact small, daily actions can have on the entire system of a company. Gradually, the employees began to notice that, even without uttering a single word of command, Clara was transforming the environment with competence and meticulous attention to detail. Alexander, increasingly restless, felt his authority being questioned in a subtle, almost imperceptible way. Every seemingly insignificant gesture and action from Clara carried a strength that challenged his perception of power. He tried to reassert his dominance with veiled remarks, provoking small discomforts or reminding everyone of his CEO status. But Clara remained steady and confident. Each display of arrogance or resistance on his part only became another opportunity for her evaluation. The employees, once fearful, began to exchange knowing glances. Something greater was unfolding. Something that signaled a profound change was on the horizon. The air in the office felt electrically charged. Every detail, the meticulous organization of the desks, Clara's calm yet commanding posture, the attentive silence of the employees, wove together to create a tension so palpable it was almost suffocating. Alexander, now painfully aware that his iron grip on control was being quietly tested, felt the weight of his own pride and limitations pressing down on him. Clara, fully conscious of the effect of her every movement, was carefully setting the stage for the right moment. She knew that her steady presence, sharp intelligence, and quiet strength were reshaping the way everyone around her perceived power and authority. Each small triumph she claimed was another piece of a larger puzzle, one that would ultimately lead to a revelation capable of transforming not only the office, but the very definition of leadership inside Horizon Dynamics. The atmosphere within Horizon Dynamics seemed to hum with anticipation. Alexander Monroe tried to maintain his unshakable facade, but beneath the surface a restless unease began to grow. Clara, with steps that were light yet decisive, moved across the space not like a mere observer, but like someone who deeply understood every subtle nuance unfolding around her. She read expressions, dissected posture, and noticed the tiniest of actions with an attentiveness that was impossible to dismiss. Employees felt it too, the energy radiating from her presence, an invisible authority that didn't need to be announced, yet was undeniable. Alexander, impatient and unsettled, made another attempt to test her resolve. He hurled remarks laced with arrogance and provocation, a desperate effort to reassert his claim to absolute control. But Clara's composure remained unshaken. The firmness of her gaze, the quiet certainty of her movements, and the weight behind her few chosen words spoke volumes, far more than titles or status ever could. And as the employees observed the unfolding exchange, a realization began to take root. Something monumental was about to happen. Something that would shatter the old hierarchy, redefine the meaning of power, and forever reshape the culture of Horizon Dynamics. As the tension mounted, Clara knew that the moment of revelation was approaching, but it was still necessary to guide her actions with precision. The way she adjusted a document, placed a glass in its proper spot, and walked across the room was carefully calculated to create maximum impact when the truth was finally revealed. Alexander could not yet imagine the magnitude of the change that was coming. The atmosphere grew more intense, the silence thick with anticipation, preparing everyone for the climax that would transform not only the office dynamics but also the very understanding of power, respect, and leadership within Horizon Dynamics. All eyes turned to Clara, who stopped in the center of the room with a serene yet commanding posture. Her stance, the steady determination in her eyes, and the confident rhythm of her steps communicated more than any words ever could. Alexander Monroe, still in disbelief, fixed his gaze on her, trying to anticipate some movement or response, unaware that this seemingly ordinary woman was about to completely change everything at Horizon Dynamics. Finally, with a calm and firm voice, Clara revealed her truth. "I am not just the new cleaning lady. I have been appointed as the next CEO of Horizon Dynamics." Collective murmurs immediately swept through the room. Expressions of shock and disbelief spread across the employees' faces. Her words were absorbed with a mixture of surprise, admiration, and expectation. Clara continued, a determined spark in her eyes. "And after observing your actions, your gestures, your words, I have decided that you, Alexander, will not be my right-hand man. Your arrogance and lack of respect have made it clear that you do not possess the leadership this company needs." The impact was immediate and profound. Alexander recoiled, paralyzed, his pride wounded by Clara's firmness and intelligence. Employees, once submissive or fearful, now clearly recognized the lesson unfolding before their eyes. True leadership does not come from titles, wealth, or intimidation, but from generosity, humility, dignity, and respect. Clara's gestures and assertive posture transformed the room into a stage of learning. The tension and suspense only partially dissipated, giving way to collective admiration. Horizon Dynamics was on the brink of a new era, and Alexander finally understood that power without humanity is fleeting, while true greatness is revealed through character and ethics. The shock that Alexander Monroe carried still lingered in the air, heavy and almost tangible. Every step he took across the office seemed to bear the weight of his own failures and arrogance. Clara's words echoed in his mind, making it clear that leadership based on fear and status would no longer have a place in this new era. Employees who had once cast fearful glances now exchanged subtle smiles, knowing looks, and gentle nods, absorbing the lesson that dignity outweighs titles or wealth. Alexander finally realized that his prideful demeanor had come at a steep cost. He had jeopardized the very position of power and prestige he had once flaunted. Meanwhile, Clara began implementing subtle but profound changes. Her decisions and instructions were delivered with calmness and respect, demonstrating to the employees that true leadership is built on recognizing individual value and fostering mutual trust. Small actions such as organizing meetings to hear ideas, valuing minor contributions, and encouraging learning and collaboration began transforming the company. The office, once filled with fear and tension, now radiated hope, motivation, and engagement, proving that meaningful change starts with attention to the smallest details. By the end of that day, the difference was evident. Alexander, still processing the magnitude of what had occurred, realized that his pride and arrogance had not only distanced him from opportunities, but had also affected everyone around him. Clara, with her calm demeanor, demonstrated that true leadership does not need to shout, threaten, or impose. It inspires, guides, and transforms. The employees now felt valued, motivated, and ready to contribute meaningfully. Horizon Dynamics was no longer merely a financially successful company. It had become a living example of empathy and profound respect, showing that real power lies in transforming lives and cultivating trust. The office, which had always carried a stifling atmosphere, now pulsed with renewed energy and new meaning. Clara walked among the desks with firm, measured steps, radiating an authority that needed no words. Yet her gestures, from a subtle nod to a gentle smile, communicated respect, recognition, and appreciation. Employees, who had once felt invisible or intimidated, now absorbed each action, understanding that true leadership manifests in care for others, empathy, and acknowledgement of individual value. The entire environment seemed to breathe a sense of relief and inspiration, as if every detail had been touched by a fresh perspective of fairness. Alexander Monroe, standing in silence, finally grasped the full magnitude of it all. For the first time, he felt the real weight of the consequences of his arrogance and disrespect. His orders, his haughty words, and his attempts at domination were now exposed to reality. Leadership requires more than power or status. It demands empathy and ethics. Clara, even without raising her voice, showed through her posture, firmness, and presence that authority is earned through character, vision, and respect for others. At the end of the day, Clara lifted her eyes, gazing at Horizon Dynamics with a mix of satisfaction and responsibility. The company was no longer just a workplace. It had become a symbol of change, true leadership, and integrity. The employees had learned the lesson that no one should ever be underestimated because of their position. Alexander, reflecting on his own behavior, understood that arrogance and pride come at a cost, and that true greatness lies in acting with humanity and respect. Horizon Dynamics was no longer the same. Every person there would carry that lesson of dignity and leadership forever. Horizon Dynamics, which for years had been steeped in fear, rigid hierarchy, and imposed authority, now pulsed with a lighter, yet transformative energy. Clara moved through the office with measured steps, radiating a natural authority that required no shouting or commands. Her gestures, her looks, and the way she adjusted small details communicated respect, recognition, and legitimate power. Employees, once trapped by fear and uncertainty, now understood that true leadership is built on dignity and valuing people, not on titles or wealth. Alexander Monroe, standing at a distance, finally faced his harsh reality. For the first time, he felt the weight of the consequences of his arrogance, pride, and disrespect. His thoughtless actions, dismissive words, and attempts to dominate had led him down a path of no return. Clara did not need to raise her voice. Her behavior conveyed authority and character. The once feared CEO realized that power without humanity is fleeting, and that true greatness is revealed through the positive impact one leaves on the lives of those around them. In the final moment, Clara addressed everyone with a phrase that would resonate in the memory of each employee. Never underestimate someone you think is nothing. Every person carries a value that is often unseen, and recognizing it can transform lives, companies, and hearts. Everyone was deeply moved, and Horizon Dynamics was no longer just a financially successful company. It had become a living example of dignity, courage, and respect. Thus, the story that began with humiliation and disdain ended with inspiration, lessons, and hope. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos, and of course, leave your like, because it really helps the channel continue bringing emotional stories like this. Thank you very much for your continued support.